Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the story. At the very beginning of the story, I would like to ask if you guys have any idea how often is baby exchanging, switching, or swapping takes place in hospitals these days? The answer is baby switching at birth is a serious problem that has substantial consequences for families. So, every year, around 28,000 newborns are exchanged at birth due to hospital errors, the inability of the staff members in the hospital to take care of such problems to occur, or incompetence. This narrative today was set in Jordan in 2010 in the lovely medieval city of Jerish. Fatma is the main character or the primary character of today's narrative. Fatma came from a very prominent and traditional religious family, and her family members worked in agriculture. Her age was she was in her early 20s, I would say, and the man who proposed her also was from a very notable and prominent family. And they too worked in the business of farm and agriculture. He was, as we say, quite capable of taking care of him and his family and his new wife too. They inquired about the individual, and he was a well known, nice person. So they accepted his proposal. Fatma got married to this man, and later she became pregnant, and she was on the verge of giving birth. They took her to the hospital, and her husband accompanied her, of course. She gave birth to a girl whom they called Noor. Fatma had returned from the hospital, and she was in good health. But there was one thing that, as you may know, a newborn's face features are constantly evolving, and particularly in the first few days. So the question here was, does the features change like rapidly and continuously? It does, and this is because of fluid buildup and their passage through the delivery canal. A newborn's face may appear like puffy or very deformed sometimes, and this frequently varies during the first few days as the infant gets rid of the excess fluid. But they also have sometimes it's like folded ears, flattened nose, or crooked jaw, which is normal, and it returns to normal actually after a few days. As time passed, her child here, her daughter, was very, very gorgeous. I mean, she was beautiful. For example, when we say someone is very lovely, it doesn't necessarily implies on the skin color. It can be her eyes, her huge round eyes, and she was rather, other than that, she was brunette and fair, but she had those features which were beautiful. That means, apart from all of that, she didn't resemble either of her parents. And not only that, she didn't even resemble anyone from her family members. I mean, the grandmother or the grandfather or the aunts, none of them. She was like entirely different from every angle. The question here was that instead of being a plus point that their daughter was so beautiful, why did it become a curse? The problem here was that the people started inquiring, and it was strange. They were asking that your daughter bears no resemblance to you or your husband. That's how appealing she was. Now, as the daughter grew from 2 to 3 or 4 months, I would say, she looked different every time she grew. That was that no way in the world that it might be their daughter. I mean, it could be something else entirely, I would say. That instant, hearing about this, the family members, every now and then, were extremely irritating and frustrating because answering such question repeatedly, especially to your husband, if someone is asking this question again and again, can lead to misunderstanding or anything that may be the reason. I mean, he'll think that if his wife, God forbid, would have an affair maybe or something wrong. That would be wrong because individuals would literally not think before speaking or talking. And really, I mean, when some ladies assemble, not only they may engage themselves in backbiting or whispering behind person's back, it's wrong. Assuming or talking behind a person's back would be wrong. In other words, I would say the Quran draws the analogy and parable that one who gossips about another person behind its back is similar to eating the flesh of his own deceased brother. And that is true. I mean, that is how bad it is. But there are people who get themselves into conversations and end up talking about people and behind their back. And that is when we have to seek for forgiveness. Now, from what happened is that from one person to the other, the entire tale and the possibility that perhaps the child is belongs to the man himself, they started dropping like signs or signals that the child might not look like you because it's not your child. All of the dialogue was, of course, indirect, but it was more than enough to make a person think that something is not right. Now, the man knew that his wife was extremely honest and devoted and a decent woman. Regardless of what people were saying or anyone said, he would not be affected either directly or indirectly. So he continued to ignore every word, whatever everyone said, possibly because they were speaking in an oblique manner and they weren't clear. He was not sure about the idea, so they thought, or he used to say or answer, that what's wrong with having a child who is different or better looking than you are, or we as parents are. After, of course, as the time went by, he was irritated. Who wouldn't be? And he decided that it would be preferable to sit with his wife and prepare, get into conversation concerning to what was going on and what people were thinking. And it is the finest method in any relationship, with whether it is the daughter or a mother or a grandfather or whatever. Having a discussion and clarifying things from the very beginning without paying attention to what you hear from outside, which actually could be disastrous. So this is what he did. He clarified things, or he thought that sitting with her and doing so, having a conversation and making things clear about what people are thinking outside would be a better option, and always is a better option. Here actually he said that I'm upset of people continuously asking me the same old question, which makes no sense to me because I know that this is our child. But maybe you would have another explanation that why she's completely different, that doesn't have anything in common. He stated that he was overjoyed that his daughter is so lovely. But of course the wife was under strain as well. So instead of relaxing and soothing each other down through dialogue, they began fighting. It sparked a massive brawl against them. She accused him, of course, of not trusting him and instead relying on others or his family members. Things had changed drastically between them following this, which was supposed to be a calming or sharing chat. Later, they received a call from the police station, and that was after a few months, of course. And they urged this man and Fatma to come to the police station right away. He claimed, if I'm alone, that would make sense. Why would my wife accompany me? Are we a part of something? Is there something wrong? They said there's nothing to be concerned about, that is, and just simply arrive as soon as possible. When they arrived at the police station, they discovered that the man and the woman, there was a man and a woman, sitting near the investigator. They took Noor, the child, to the police station with them. They couldn't have just left her somewhere. She was still a child. The first thing the police or the woman at the police station did was to reach out to Fatma to grab Noor and started screaming. Fatma here got in panic and she started punching the woman and yelling at her to get away from her and her daughter. Of course, detectives and the police were called in to assist with the separation. So they requested them to have a seat and just to calm down. Now here they began to explain. They said, there is a woman, Fatma and her husband, they were explaining her that this woman, who is also from this town, Awatif gave birth at the same time Fatma did. And they both have daughters. Now when the pediatric nurses came to pick up the children, they took the babies to clean. And the head of the pediatric nurses, Servet, her name was Servet, she was the one who was in charge. That means she was the one who was supposed to, after them changing the baby and cleaning and washing and whatever, she was supposed to keep or place the name tags on around the feet of the two newborns. The name tags are actually preserved to avoid name swapping errors and other errors. But because Servet was in charge, she was the one who had traded the tags, means she's the one who changed them. Noor was given to Fatma and Abir was given to Awatif, means the babies were swapped. How did Awatif know that it wasn't her daughter after 9 months? The same thing happened with Awatif that happened to Fatma. Means people started questioning them. That how could you two, who are blonde and fair with green eyes, and have a daughter who is brown-skinned? Again, the girl did not resemble her parents or her mother or the entire family. And after possibly having a fight, after having fights and misunderstandings, they had a DNA test and discovered that she was not the daughter. They rushed to the police station right away. And that was after, thinking that for 9 months that it was their daughter, and it can't happen. And after determining who had given birth, they discovered that Fatma was the one. The woman was present, and the fact that it was her daughter indicates that she actually resembled her mother so much, and she was like a perfect duplicate of her mother. And Abir, the child Fatif was carrying, looked just like Fatma and her husband. Without a doubt, the facial traits were equally, I would say, the same as her parents. So Fatma's daughter was now Abir. And who could believe that it is true? We would think it would be a movie. But as mentioned at the very start, that the article we had read has been happening frequently. Again, the reason is poor management, which is prone to making such errors. Now, back to the story. After calming down Fatma, she accepted the fact that this is right. This could have been right all along. And 9 months would be better than, for 9 months, she is taking care of her child. She's feeding her, and Awatif was doing the same. She took excellent care of her daughter. But it was time to get back, or for the true daughters to get back to their real mothers. Of course, they were grateful that this had occurred, and it would have been more difficult to separate them or anything else after years, and that's what they assumed. Now was the moment of them to take action against the hospital, but again, they thought that they would take care of the child, return back home, and decide of what to do next. Abi, that was now Fatma's daughter, she didn't wanted her mother and refused to be fed. Now she began crying all hours of the day and night, and she couldn't stay quiet in the arms of her actual mother. Whatever the case may be, she didn't eat enough. They reasoned that why would she not get used to her own mother after a few days? Means she would have been really hungry and she would start eating, or she would see the toys around her, people around her, maybe they'll make her laugh, but there was no use whatsoever, and she resisted all attempts to connect with her mother. She didn't. And she kept on seeing Fatma, and every now and then she saw her, she started crying. Now, during these 4 days and day by day, her health deteriorated. They became very, I would say, confused at what was happening. And this also implies that she would be crying, and that could be something like she's trying to get used to. So they decided to take her to the hospital, and that was the best option. They explained what was going on and what has occurred previously. So they wanted to make things clear that this child, they are afraid that something will happen to her. So again, because she was taken to the hospital because she wouldn't accept her mother or anyone else at this point, and the girl was literally unwell. So she had no idea what to anticipate. They inquired with the hospital staff and they requested that she should be admitted in the hospital. Fatma and her husband returned home, and after 2 days they got a call from the hospital and they apologized, saying, "We are sorry, the girl died." That is their daughter and is no longer alive. Fatma, of course, burst into tears, and first and foremost, she was blamed and accused and whatever of dishonesty and betrayal. And then there was that she received a call from the police station, and later she discovered that this was not her real daughter, and it kept on coming. Within 9 months time period from the birth to the end of 9 months, she kept on getting into things after things, and she actually couldn't keep her real daughter in her arms after taking her, and she was in deep shock. So they brought a lawsuit against the hospital. The head nurse of the pediatric department of the hospital was also involved in paying the compensation of 20,000 dinars. And that brings us to the end of the story. Thank you for listening.